for particular sacred groves, and for other meanings, see sacred grove. A sacred grove or sacred woods are any grove of trees of special religious importance to a particular culture. Sacred groves feature in various cultures throughout the world. They were important features of the mythological landscape and cult practice of Celtic, Baltic, Germanic, Ancient Greek, Near Eastern, Roman, and Slavic polytheism, and were also used in India, Japan, and West Africa. Examples of sacred groves include the Greco-Roman Temenos, the Norse Haug, and the Celtic Nemeton, which was largely but not exclusively associated with Druidic practice. During the Northern Crusades, there was a common practice of building churches on the sites of sacred groves. The Lakota and other various tribes consider particular forests or other natural landmarks to be sacred. This is one of the reasons that there has been recent dispute over the nullification of acknowledgement of Native American reservation land by the U.S. government and an attempt to compensate Native Americans for the reacquisition of this sacred space. Ancient holy trees still exist in the English countryside and are mentioned often in folklore and fairy tales. In history, ancient Near East, there are two mentions on this tradition in the Bible. Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there the name of God. Genesis chapter 21 verse 33, and where the women wove hangings for the grove. 2 Kings chapter 23 verse 7. Excavations at Labraunda have revealed a large shrine assumed to be that of Zeus Stratios, mentioned by Herodotus as a large sacred grove of plane trees sacred to Carians. In Syria, there was a grove sacred to Adonis at Afqa. Religions of ancient Greece and Rome. The most famous sacred groves in mainland Greece was the oak grove at Dodona, outside the walls of Athens. The site of the academy was a sacred grove of olive trees, still recalled in the phrase, the groves of Academe, in central Italy. The town of Nemi recalls the Latin nemis Aracinum, or grove of Arshiya, a small town a quarter of the way around the lake. In antiquity the area had no town, but the grove was the site of one of the most famous of Roman cults and temples, that of Diana Nomorensis, a study of which served as the seed for Sir James Fraser's seminal work on the anthropology of religion, The Golden Bough. A sacred grove behind the house of the Vestal Virgins on the edge of the Roman Forum lingered until its last vestiges were burnt in the Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE. In the town of Spoleto, Umbria, 2 stones from the late 3rd century BCE, inscribed in archaic Latin, established punishments for the profanation of the woods dedicated to Jupiter have survived. They are preserved in the National Archaeological Museum of Spoleto. The Bosco Sacro in the Garden of Bomarzo, Italy, lends its associations to the uncanny atmosphere. The city of Marseille, a Greek colony, had a sacred grove so close by it that Julius Caesar had it cut down to facilitate his siege. In Pharsalia, the poet Lucan dramatized it as a place where sunlight could not reach through the branches, where no animal or bird lived, where the wind did not blow, but branches moved on their own, where human sacrifice was practiced, in a clear attempt to dramatize the situation and distract from the sacrilege entailed in its destruction. Baltic polytheism. Sacred groves have survived in the Baltic states longer than in other parts of Europe. The main Baltic Prussian sanctuary, which is also considered a sacred grove, was Romo. An important wave of destruction of sacred groves was carried out in the lands of present-day Lithuania after its Christianization in 1387, and in Samogitia in 1413. However, some groves, such as in Sventibrastis, still survive in Lithuania. A sacred grove is known as Alka in Lithuanian. Conversely, in Estonia numerous sacred graves have survived to the present day and have recently been protected by the government of the country. Germanic paganism. Sacred groves feature prominently in Scandinavia. The most famous sacred grove of northern Europe was at the temple at Uppsala in Old Uppsala, where every tree was considered sacred, described by Adam of Bremen. The practice of blot, the sacrificial ritual in Norse paganism, was usually held in lunds or sacred groves. According to Adam of Bremen, in Scandinavia, pagan kings sacrificed 9 males of each species at the sacred groves every 9th year. Celtic polytheism. The Celts used sacred groves, called nemeton in Gaulish, for performing rituals based on Celtic mythology. The deity involved was usually Nemtona, a Celtic goddess. Druids oversaw such rituals. Existence of such groves have been found in Germany, Switzerland, Czech Republic and Hungary in Central Europe. In many sites of ancient Gaul in France, as well as England and Northern Ireland, sacred groves had been plentiful up until the 1st century BC, when the Romans attacked and conquered Gaul. One of the most well-known nemeton sites is that in the Nevet forest near Locronan in Brittany, France. Gournay-sur-Erandet, a village in the Oise department of France, also houses the remains of a nemeton. Nemetons were often fenced off by enclosures, as indicated by the German term Vierkschanze, meaning a quadrangular space surrounded by a ditch enclosed by wooden palisades. Many of these groves, like the sacred grove at Didyma, Turkey, are thought to be nemetons. Sacred groves protected by Druids based on Celtic mythology. In fact, according to Strabo, the central shrine at Galatia was called Druid-meton. Some of these were also sacred groves in Greek times, but were based on a different or slightly changed mythology. Today, United States, the Lakota and other various tribes consider particular forests or other natural landmarks to be sacred. This is one of the reasons that there has been recent dispute over the nullification of acknowledgement of Native American reservation land by the U.S. government in an attempt to compensate Native Americans for the reacquisition of this sacred space. Better source needed. Estonia. Based on historical data, it is estimated that there are around 2,500 sacred natural sites in Estonia, the largest of them covering up to 100 hectares. Although rather exceptional among most of the technologically developed countries, in Estonia both the sacred natural sites and indigenous customs connected to them are still in use. Therefore, the heritage that is connected to sacred natural sites has great importance to the national identity and environment of Estonians. In collaboration between followers of Estonian native religion and governmental ministries, a national plan was prepared in 2008. Sacred Natural Sites in Estonia. Study and Conservation 2008 to 2012, which includes about 550 HIIs. The National Plan on Sacred Natural Sites consists of a historical overview about sacred natural sites in Estonia, a current citation analysis, and several concrete conservation measures and instructions on how to apply them. The coordinating steering committee of the conservation plan consists of Environment, Agriculture, Internal Affairs and Education and Research Ministries, National Heritage Board and MK. The University of Tartu is the implementing agency. Measures of the conservation plan are designed to handle natural sanctuaries and values connected to them in all aspects. The conservation plan foresees creating a database which supports researching and managing natural sanctuaries. The database would consist of folkloric, archaeological, natural, historical and other data on sacred natural sites and provide information on the exact location, condition and form of ownership of each site. Ghana sacred groves are also present in Ghana. One of Ghana's most famous sacred groves, the Boim Sacred Grove, and numerous other sacred groves are present in the Tekaman Municipal District, and nearby districts of the Brong-Ahafo region. They provide a refuge for wildlife which has been exterminated in nearby areas. And one grove most notably houses 20,000 fruit bats in underground caves. the capital of the historical Ghana Empire, contained a sacred grove called Al-Gaba for performing religious rites of the Soninka people. Other sacred groves in Ghana include sacred groves along the coastal savannas of Ghana. Many sacred groves in Ghana are now under federal protection, like the Anwim Sacred Grove in the Escort Forest Reserve. Other well-known sacred groves in present-day Ghana include the Malshegu Sacred Grove in northern Ghana, one of the last remaining closed canopy forests in the savanna regions, and the Jivchi Sacred Grove. In India, sacred groves are scattered all over the country, and do enjoy protection. Prior to 2002, these forest regions were not recognized under any of the existing laws. But in 2002 an amendment was brought in Wildlife Protection Act, 1972 to include sacred groves under the Act. Some NGOs work with local villages to protect such groves. Each grove is associated with a presiding deity, and the grove are referred to by different names in different parts of India. They were maintained by local communities with hunting and logging strictly prohibited within these patches. While most of these sacred deities are associated with local Hindu gods, sacred groves of Islamic and Buddhist origins are also known. Sacred groves occur in a variety of places, from scrub forests in the Thar Desert of Rajasthan maintained by the Bishnois, to rainforests in the Kerala Western Ghats. Arunachal Pradesh in the north and Kerala in the south are specifically known for their large numbers of sacred groves. The Kadavas of Karnataka maintained over 1,000 sacred groves in Kodagu alone. Around 14,000 sacred groves have been reported from all over India, which act as reservoirs of rare fauna, and more often rare flora, amid rural and even urban settings. Experts believe that the total number of sacred groves could be as high as 100,000. Threats to the groves include urbanization, overexploitation of resources, and environmental destruction from Hindu religious practices. While many of the groves are looked upon as abode of Hindu gods, in the recent past a number of them have been partially cleared for construction of shrines and temples. Ritualistic dances and dramatizations based on the local deities that protect the groves are called Thayam in Kerala and Nagmandalam, among other names. In Karnataka, there are sacred groves in Ernakulam region in a place named Mongator in Kerala. Sacred groves are being destroyed as a part of urbanization. The family, Nalukatal Puthanpurayal, still protects sacred groves. Japan. Sacred groves in Japan are typically associated with Shinto shrines, and are located all over Japan. They have existed since ancient times, and shrines are often built in the midst of pre-existing groves. The cryptomeria tree is venerated in Shinto practice, and considered sacred. Among the sacred groves associated with such Jinjis or Shinto shrines is the 20-hectare wooded area associated with Atsuta Shrine at Atsutaku, Nagoya. The 1,500-hectare forest associated with Kashima Shrine was declared a protected area in 1953. Today it is part of the Kashima Wildlife Preservation Area. The woods include over 800 kinds of trees and varied animal and plant life. Tadashu no Mori is a general term for a wooded area associated with the Kamo Shrine, which is a Shinto sanctuary near the banks of the Kamo River in northeast Kyoto. The ambit of today's forests encompasses approximately 12.4 hectares, which it preserved as a National Historical Site. The Kamagamo Shrine and the Shimogama Shrine, along with other historic monuments of ancient Kyoto, have been designated World Heritage Sites since 1994. Okinawa. The Irutaki sacred sites on Okinawa are based on Ryukyuan religion, and usually are associated with Tun or Kami Asaja, regions dedicated to the gods where people are forbidden to go. Sacred groves are often present in such places, as also in Gusukus, fortified areas which contain sacred sites within them. The Saifa Irutaki was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site designated in 2003. It consists of a triangular cavern formed by gigantic rocks, and contains a sacred grove with rare, indigenous trees like the Cuban oak and the Yabunicate or Cinnamomum japonicum. Direct access to the grove is forbidden. Malaysia. Much of the ways of the ancient inhabitants of Malaysia have largely been forgotten, mostly due to the taboos among the local populace on putting certain esoteric knowledge down in ink, thus only passed down through examples and word of mouth from mother to daughter and father to son. However, much can be observed by the ways and habits of the natives of Malaysia, which include 18 tribes of Orange Asli and the Malays, who are often regarded as the 19th tribe. There is a practice of tree planting around houses to the extent that the walls and wooden structures are allowed to give way to the roots of creeping plants, purposely sown at the bases of these structures. With increased migration towards the larger cities, these houses are abandoned and allowed to return to nature, as most traditional Orange Asli and Malay houses are made of only wood, bamboo, rattan and woven palm leaves. The remains of those houses crumble easily into its surrounding. Besides that, a practice of creating arches of vine and creeping flowering plants so that each time one were to enter the gates of the house, one has to bow, as if implying or imitating respect upon entry to a sacred grove, which were practiced by their ancestors. Such practices are even performed by those who have migrated into the cities who prefer to live in houses on the ground, rather than in high-rise apartments. A garden of fruit trees, surrounded by larger trees, are planted around the houses to provide shade and an illusion of being at home, as well as to provide sustenance to squirrels, foxes, insects and birds. Commonly, a cat, or in most instances, many cats are kept to patrol the gardens and guard from harmful spirits, as well as against rats, which were believed to carry unclean spirits and diseases. However, one of the most striking examples of the tree reverence among them can be seen in the graveyards, which are considered as holy ground, on which no stone structure can be built upon. The whole area are covered by large and tall trees, so much foliage that the scorching tropical sun is reduced to a dim shadow as temperatures drop to a comfortable cool. Malay folklore relates that the trees whisper prayers to the Creator in absolution of the past transgression of the ground's once human inhabitants. The trees are also allowed to take root into the graves, where the gravekeepers slowly remove gravestones as they are ejected from the grounds onto the surface. There is also a ritual of planting small tree sapling on fresh graves by family members who will then water it and tend to it periodically. Petals from fresh red and pink roses are also brought upon visitation to be scattered on the graves, and a ritual of pouring rose water upon the soils are also performed. The Malays regard visiting the graves from between sunset to sunrise as a taboo, as it is believed that his sunrise is the beginning of day to mankind. Sunset is perceived as the beginning of day to those who dwell in the grave area. Burials are almost always postponed until the next day, except in certain cases where it is allowed, provided that additional rules are observed, such as women and children are not allowed at the nighttime burial ceremony. An ancient ritual of renaming the deceased as she or he is laid into the earth is also practiced. The Orange Asli and Malay naming system has a living name and a spirit name, which is given during the ritual of burial. This name is known as Namarawa. The living name is usually the given name plus the word anak, which means son, daughter of, or bin, and binta, which means son of or daughter of, respectively, followed by the name of the father. When a person dies, the father's name is replaced with his or her mother's name, and this is made known during the reading of burial sentences. Nepal granted World Heritage status by UNESCO in 1997. Lumbini Grove is a Buddhist pilgrimage site in the Rupandahai district of Nepal. It is the place where, according to Buddhist tradition, Queen Maya Devi gave birth to Siddhartha Gautama in 623 BCE. Gautama, who achieved nirvana sometime around 543 BCE, became the Lord Gautama Buddha and founded Buddhism after achieving enlightenment. The Maya Devi Temple is located at Lumbini, Nigeria. The concept of sacred groves is present in Nigerian mythology as well. The Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove, containing dense forests, is located just outside of the city of Osogbo, and is regarded as one of the last virgin high forests in Nigeria. It is dedicated to the fertility goddess in Yoruba mythology, and is dotted with shrines and sculptures. Oloy Venga, an Austrian artist, helped revive the grove. The grove was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2005. Thailand's sacred groves, mostly connected to Thai folk belief, are known to have existed in Thailand since medieval times. Recently, new areas are being marked off as sacred as an environmental movement. United States of America. The Bohemian Grove, located at 20,601 Bohemian Avenue, in Monte Rio, California, is a sacred grove belonging to a private San Francisco-based men's art club known as the Bohemian Club. In mid-July each year, Bohemian Grove hosts a 2-week, 3-weekend encampment of some of the most powerful men in the world, where they perform symbolic rituals, such as cremation of care, sacred woods, groves and trees. In fiction, J.R.R. Tolkien included many magical trees and woods in his fictional writings, which he based on English and Norse mythology. George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire features weirwoods, a fictional tree species that is worshipped, particularly ancient groves holding extra significance. In the Legend of Zelda video game series, there is a location called the Sacred Grove in Hyrule, usually depicted as a gateway to the Temple of Time and thus the Sacred Realm, one of the most important locations in the series' backstory. In MTV's Teen Wolf, a sacred tree known as a Nemeton serves as a beacon for supernatural creatures and retained some of its power even after being cut down.